Got a few more people. Give it one more minute. Then we'll get kicked off here. Got plenty of time. So first and foremost, thanks everybody for attending. Last week we did this. It was my first one. And so hopefully this one will be a little bit better as we get as we kind of learn a little bit about how to navigate it. But essentially the format of this is, I guess there is no format really. It's not meant to be a presentation or anything like that, or anything that's kind of pre-conceived. The idea here is that anybody and everybody on the call here, and there's about about 50 of us here, can just ask me to show anything and everything about our products, or just in general AI, or how we approach building out AI agents. Any question you want to ask, obviously, I'm happy to answer. And if a question has to do with the product itself, I know most of you are customers, and want to drill into something specific, I'll spin up and kind of showcase the product itself, right? And so we'll dig into whether it be the CX product, which is our core platform, our new product, which we call Command, which is basically a AI native data room, and makes it easier for you to train and connect your agents with your existing databases and systems. Or we're also going to talk a little bit today about Control, which is our outbound marketing for AI agents. But again, I'll talk about anything and everything that you guys want to. All you have to do is post your comments in a chat, and I'll just take them one by one. Typically, I'll start off by just kind of showcasing a few things just to get the kind of party started here for about 10 to 15 minutes, while it gives you time to kind of think about questions, and then I'll let them load up. And basically when I see there's a pretty healthy amount of questions in the chat, I'll start toggling over and start incorporating those answers. Just as also kind of housekeeping, as you can see here, we've got a lot of resources that are available. Some are very familiar with you, and obviously you can find it in our products. But if you're not familiar with it, we have all of our guide and training that we do is on our docs.raiaai.com site. Another thing that we just launched this month is if you're not a customer, which if you are, you already have access to everything you need, but want to find out and play around with the product and get a developer license. Although it's limited in token usage, it gives you the full capability of understanding how the product works if you want to kind of do a little bit of a trial. So you can head to license.raia. Actually, that website's wrong there. I'm going to change that. Sorry. Go to license.raia.run, and that will allow you to request a license pretty easily. You just put your email in, and then our team will get back to you. And of course, if you don't know your license key and you're an existing customer, you can email customer support, and you can get your license key and share that again within your company, so that you can get other people access to the system. So obviously you can invite people into the product as well. But if, like, for example, you don't have access to Raia Command or Raia Control, which are two products I'll show you today, you're going to need a license key to get access to that. So just have to request that from the support team. But that's it pretty much. So I'm gonna kind of dive right into it and kind of showcase a few different use cases that are very popular. And please keep posting your questions in here. I will get to them in about 15 minutes. You can come in and out of this meeting even though I'm going to be here for a couple hours. It doesn't mean that you have to stick around for a couple hours. And obviously, if you see anybody or want to invite anybody else to it, feel free to and send them the Google link. It should be open for people to join. But again, I appreciate you guys being here. So first thing I want to talk about is, and I did this on the last one, and I think it helps just to kind of frame what I'm going to be showing today and just the overall ecosystem. And I think it's important to kind of understand the future of what you're ultimately going to build, with or without Raia, or as part of what we do. And this is kind of just a good clean way of understanding where everything fits. I know a lot of you are already, in this top area here where you're using everyday productivity tools. You're probably using Claude or ChatGPT or Copilot, and your team is using those to either advance coding or be more productive on the operations side. And most likely, maybe even some of you are using Claude Code to kind of generate some AI generated applications. I know a lot of you on this call are dealing with have legacy software products, obviously, but you might be experimenting with generating new UXs or generating new code. So a lot of the CSI companies and our customers kind of live in this area here, and they're starting to understand that this has obviously limitations in the sense that if you want to build out autonomous work and you want to build out agents and manage those agents to do that work, these tools help you get partially there, but ultimately you want to put it on a platform that can actually scale and actually can be managed, right? And that's obviously where we focus our efforts, specifically around building out that platform that allows you to do that. So I'm going to be showcasing today some examples of how we build out an agent, and then more specifically, how we make it easy to do this kind of area here in this middle, and also on the bottom, right? So we're gonna showcase our Copilot tools, which is kind of the human in the loop and reinforcement learning. We're gonna and which also kind of talks about testing and training, which I'll talk about command, and then obviously and also the data embedding, which is another thing that command does. So this is a lot of technical jargon here. And 3 years ago when we started, we saw this as kind of like a very complicated soup to make, and we wanted to make it very easy and accelerate the ability for you to build these agents without having to worry about all these different pieces. So essentially, what raia CX is it combines all this and makes it real easy, kind of point and click, drag and drop interface to kind of building all of this without sacrificing what I would call the enterprise grade structure of it. So, out of the box with what I'm going to show today, you're going to see security, compliance, ability to add communication, auditing, access control. I'm going to show a bunch of skills, how easy it is to set up skills, how easy it is to spin up a vector database with every agent, and then of course, talk about workflows as well. So again, when you think about where we're headed, and you're thinking about where we're, what ecosystem you're going to be building over the next, 2, 3, 4, 5 years to support your agentic workforce, this is going to look probably something like this. And of course, we all have our legacy systems where we're going to have to integrate those as well, but you kind of, from an isolation perspective. So let's go ahead and start with, let's go ahead and build an agent and walk through how easy it is to kind of build an agent on the platform. And I know many of you have already done this, so I promise it won't be too boring, but it'll be, I think, helpful to see kind of how it works. So I'm logged in right now in our CX product, which is the raia2.com. When you log in, I'm looking at what I would call the builder or the launch pad. So this is when you think about your team, right? Your existing team. There's really 3 kind of roles that you need to fill if you're deploying out an agentic workforce. The first role is going to, and there might be multiple people in this role, but this first role is the agent builder, right? This is the person who's going to actually build the agent itself, right? Now, it doesn't have to be a technical person. Typically, it's a product manager or somebody, maybe even somebody at the head of your support, depending on what agent they're building, but they would be using this interface. And then the second role is you have your agent manager or tester. This is the person who's actually kind of managing the agent. This is the human in the loop, human feedback, and that person would be using our Copilot tool along with all the other employees within your company who actually want to access these agents themselves. And then of course the other roles that you're going to kind of deploy out is your kind of more you're basically your manager, your processor, your workflow creator. So this is the person who actually dictates what he wants or she wants these agents to do, right? So those are kind of 3 roles that you might want to think about filling. And again, one person could technically fill all 3, but you have kind of this person who's the domain expert, the business expert, who's building out the workflows and understands what they want this agent to do. That's very important because it requires training and testing. Then you're actually going to have the person who's actually managing the day-to-day. If it's a support agent, they're in there making sure the support agent is answering the questions correctly. And then you're going to have this kind of builder role. So let's talk about the builder role here. So to create an agent, I'm I'm going to go ahead and create an agent that's a salesperson, because today we're going to focus on launching a campaign where this salesperson sends out an email and has conversations with prospects. So I'm just going to, you can obviously call it whatever you want. So essentially, you're giving it metadata now. You're going to give it a name. You're just going to give it a basic instruction. We'll talk about sales agent, prospecting. So the goal here is I'm going to build out an agent that not only is trained on our existing, products and stuff like that, but also is able to, once I connect it to raia control, I'll be able to, it'll send out emails and be able to respond to those emails and then bring back those leads, qualified leads, back into my CRM, right? So that's just like a classic sales use case. We're going to go, we don't have to worry about this, but you can upload a logo and stuff like that to, obviously see what's going on. Now I'm gonna do this later, but this is where you would kind of put this, you could put the starting point of instructions here. Now, if you want to put like a, we'll just put sales rep who is prospecting for my company, raia. You can obviously get it started here, but the instructions of the agent are something you're going to go back to many times. But if you want to just kind of get a starting template up and running, this is basically what we call the system instructions. Now this is the primary directive of the agent, right? So this is the most powerful part of the training when you talk about the AI, because this is like the golden rule it follows. So even you're going to upload documents and train it into the vector store. You're also going to give it some other tools and skills to impact how it behaves. But this is the primary way that it dictates its behavior. So whatever you put in here is pretty much how the AI is going to operate. And that goes with what to do and what not to do, right? But we're gonna come back to this when we get to the edit screen. I'm just going to go through this. And of course, you can upload documents here. So for the training of the agent, but we're going to do that later just to make it easier. We also have this thing called packs. So obviously, if you're training a lot of agents, you're going to maybe want to share different kind of training packs. Maybe you have a policy pack of you don't want any agent doing X, Y, and Z, or maybe there's some shared training. Maybe you have a bunch of documents that no matter what kind of agent you want to build, you want to have those documents included in the training at all times. It's just a more modular way to think about how you manage data and the training of the AI agents. I'll show more about that later, but I'm just going to go ahead and skip this one. But if I wanted to include my global policy pack, I could just put it right here and you'll see that it'll be added to my instructions. Now, this is an area where we're going to dive in pretty deep, which is skills. Right now, I'm going to go through and basically go ahead and tell it needs an email skill because we are going to have an email. But I'm going to add some more skills once the agent is built out as well. Again, this is just really more of a wizard to get going, to kind of create your agent. But then you're going to get to a screen like this where you can actually now manage this agent. So what's happened now is, and I'm just going to create like a nice little logo for myself here. What's happened now is I've actually created pretty much the entire infrastructure of a robust enterprise AI agent. So back to that picture that I was showing earlier, that whole middle area is now possible. And so let me walk you through what happened, right? First and foremost, we built out the structure of an agent, which included, obviously the vector store, so and the training and so forth. So right now you see here that you're able to upload documents. And so it's already linked into, you'll see here, it's already created a vector store for us. So every agent has its own vector store. Now, a vector store is really just a database, but it's a database specifically for AI. If you understand kind of the basic concept behind large language models and how they work, is they use basically vector spaces to find two of the closest vectors, allows it to understand what to say next. So it's basically nearest neighbor algorithm, not to get too technical, but ultimately the language of the AI is essentially vector. This is one of the reasons why NVIDIA's, obviously dominating the chip space, is that they were one of the first people to create GPUs, which is basically graphic processing, which uses vectors, right? The screen that video games, ironically, so you can thank your kids for playing a lot of video games because they essentially pre-funded AI by buying a bunch of chips from NVIDIA, and that gave them the idea that they could use those GPUs for vector spaces. Now, when you talk about how your data needs to be formatted, this is the biggest thing that most people don't understand, is that all the data that you currently have, whether it's in PDFs and documents, inside of a existing relational database, plain text, wherever your data is and lives, the next 5 years is going to be you pulling that, maybe not 5 years, maybe it only takes you a year or two, but you're going to start transitioning. All that data is going to start being vectorized, whether you're doing it for the sake of launching an agent or your products and software that you're using is going to start doing it. And so we have to get all the data of the world into a vector, mathematical vectors, embeddings, so that you can actually give it over to AI and talk. And that's essentially what a large language model is, by the way. Among other things, it took the entire globe of information and put it into one giant database. Now, with this vector store, this one is specific to this agent. So it's isolated so that it doesn't bleed into others. And it's going to be specifically trained on my data. So I'm going to go ahead and drag and drop a few documents in here just to kind of show you how it would work. So I'm just gonna drag and drop a little information about. Let me go back to the documents. Now you can drag and drop documents in here right directly through directly through CX. But I'm going to show you the command product in a bit, which is a much more powerful and much more scalable way to do it that will convert all your documents. So I'm going to go ahead and drag and drop what's called a markdown, which is the format you want. Markdown is like a text-based document that is very clean, and AI loves that. That's like their favorite food, and then that makes it easier and provides a better way for it to chunk it and to put it into a vector database. So now I've uploaded that document into the vector store, and now it's part of its training, right? Now if I toggle over here, I see the instructions that I created when I created the agent, but I can update these instructions, right? So obviously this has nothing to do with my product or anything like that. It's just very basic. You'll see here, I also remember I added the global policy pack and it automatically added that. But it really is just like a very basic sales agent, right? It doesn't know anything about my products yet, but I'll fix that in a minute, and we can then see what basically a basic agent acts like. Now, obviously, so now I've kind of got like what I would call the basic training, right? I've got instructions and I've got the vector store, or basically the database. Now, this is an area why the question is, why do I need a vector store? Well, the typical agent that you want to create, especially an enterprise grade autonomous agent, it's going to be trained on probably thousands of documents, or a minimum, hundreds of documents and a lot of data that's coming in from different systems. There's a limit to tools that we use, right? So I'm sure you've all hit the limit, whether it's ChatGPT or Claude, when you're uploading documents and you're doing something, it only can take so many documents, because what they do is they translate it into the context window. So the biggest inhibitor of AI is it only allows you to have so much data inside of a context window that you send as a prompt. Now, what Vector Store allows you to do is you can have tens of thousands of documents in the database, and it creates another layer. So if you think about the AI stack as a cake, it's another layer that allows your AI agent to go and query the vector store first for relevant data, and then create kind of a curated prompt or additional context window or context for your context window, which allows that AI to have a much more expansive access to much more data. And that's what's required when you're launching like support agents or knowledge base agents, et cetera, is you need that database, and it operates very, very cohesively on top of your large language model. So think of it, even though it's not a correct way to think of it, think of this as like your own basically brain, or your own model, if you will, even though it's not technically correct, but it's essentially like your own proprietary vector store that when your AI is thinking about things, it's going to go through your vector store first, which is going to have as a higher priority, and then it's going to go to large language model and then bring back the answer. And so this is why you need it, because it's you're almost every single agent you're going to create is going to require way more than what the context window can support. So you need a vector store to kind of organize and find and search for that data on its own. So the next thing that you do when you create an agent, and this is another, so first of all, to do that from scratch, what I just did, in a matter of minutes, is a lot of work. I don't want to, tying up a vector store, connecting the dots, setting up the infrastructure of an agent, building that kind of, think of it like a stem cell, right? Out of the box, you have a stem cell, and now you get to determine if it's going to be a muscle, a brain, or a bone. but ultimately, like, just to get to this point is a lot of work. Now, you can imagine if the future, if everybody believes, basically what everybody is saying is in the future, you're not going to just have a couple of these things, right? You're going to have tens of hundreds, if not thousands of agents. So now you have to start thinking about, okay, well, yeah, you're right. Not only is it going to be hard for me to build these from scratch every time, but now think about the management of it, right? So again, having a singular platform like this to manage all this is going to be something that you're going to have to incorporate into your business. Unfortunately, it's good news, bad news. Good news is you're going to get the massive amount of productivity gains from deploying AI agents. The bad news is you're going to have to shift how you think about managing your company. Just like employees, human employees, you're going to have to figure out, okay, how do I manage these agents, especially when they start doing, high value work, right? Support agent that's answering your tickets, sales agents that's responding to your prospects, operationals agents that are, basically running a lot of your back end functions, legal agents, HR, M&A agents, all these things that we build are going to need management, are going to need constant oversight and care. So when we talk about skills, we consistently add skills all the time, and this is one of the accelerators. Now, when we talk about raia, I always think of raia as an accelerator. Everything we're doing here, we're building on best of breed core technology. We live on top of the OpenAI family of models. We'll be soon supporting Anthropic and Google as well. This entire thing is built and connected to allow for it to connect to your existing systems, whether it be your Microsoft ecosystem, your Salesforce, your Teams, whatever it might be. So we're just a layer that accelerates your ability to build out agents rapidly, and that's and also managed in long term. So let's call it, so like this agent right here is going to be a sales agent, but I might want to be able to have it book appointments. So I have a calendar skill here that I can set up. I also might want it to escalate to my sales rep. If somebody says something maybe that's like specific to like a keyword, or they go, yeah, I want a demo or something like that, I can escalate it here. So I'm going to add the escalation skill. I'm also going to want to give it feedback, which is called human feedback on the training. So I'm going to add the feedback skill. Now, if I wanted to incorporate or have it, call another function or call my CRM system or put a lead into my CRM system, I can do that through the function skill, or I could do it through webhooks. So I'm going to use webhooks to do that because it's an easy thing to kind of showcase and talk about. But essentially, when you talk about an agent having a conversation with a lead, right? In this use case, when that conversation is over, I want to go put it in my CRM system. And that's what a webhook does, right? I'm going to webhook it over to Salesforce. I'm going to webhook it over to HubSpot so that in my CRM system, I have the full conversation. Maybe I update the status of the lead based on the scoring of how I score the lead and so forth. And, speaking of scoring, that's another skill that's already been added. I'm going to walk you through as well. Now, I might want to also, just say, hey, you know what? I'm not planning on logging into this a lot, but I want to notify my sales manager every time the AI has a conversation. I want to notify somebody as well. So I'm going to create the notification skill. And then again, all of these different skills have different purposes. For example, if we're doing anything that requires auditing, like security auditing and so forth, I might want to use that. Now, in this case, I'm going to use this agent to do emails. So probably not too much of an issue there. But if it's going to be a live chat agent, I might want to have the auditor skill. So I'm going to go and also make it a live chat agent as well. So out of the box, raia gives you the ability for you to have this agent do email, SMS, voice, also launch it as live chat right on my website. So if I wanted to operate in those areas, especially live chat, because it's a public interface, I'm probably going to want to have an auditor looking at the chats just to make sure nobody's doing anything funny or weird. And I'm going to have like a PII scanner and stuff like that. And then I think that's good for now. Like there's other components here. Like if I want to get a full report every week on token usage, on how many conversations that were happening, I could add the report skill. More I think about it, I'll also do that. If I wanted to go out and grab information off the web, I can have it. I can incorporate scraping. If I wanted to do text or voice, I can incorporate those. If I want to give it web search capability, it's not important for this because the sales agent, I really wanted to focus on our products. I don't need it to go out and do web search. But if you're doing a knowledge base agent or you're doing something that you want to go out and do deep research, this is certainly a skill that you would want to add to it. And I don't plan on APIing into this. We have an API layer to the agent. I don't plan on integrating this agent into any sort of workflow. So I don't need to activate an API key, but every single agent acts as their own tenant. So what's cool about this is think of it almost as like an isolated piece of software. So it not only has its own database, it has its own training, but it also has an interface, a programmatical interface, an API. It also has webhooks. So it's really a very compartmentalized. And again, you're going to have hundreds of these things. So it's very important to kind of keep everything isolated. And speaking of which, I might also like just invite somebody to, if I want to invite people to my agent, I can invite them here as well. So we manage access control at the agentic layer. So you can create an agent that only a few people have access to, right? Or you can create an agent that the entire world has access to. So in this case, it's going to be a public agent anyway, because it's a sales agent. It's going to live on our website. But if you had something that was a little bit more, required more privacy, you could certainly do that. And then we're going to go ahead and I'm just going to go ahead and make this public so I can email it. And so let's walk through the skills real quick. So the auditor skill, very basic. Like if I want to look at PII, or if I want to manage, look at any sort of, common prompt hack, I can look for those kind of things here. If I wanted to create my own auditor, I can certainly do that here. And then I can auto assign within our system. You can auto assign, those things to, as alerts, right, to me. And also you can email or SMS or call another webhook. So if you wanted to integrate this with a security system, or if you wanted to have it email your security people or your manager of the AI agent, you could set this up pretty easily right there, right? So pretty straightforward, on that side. The calendar skill, we can set up a calendar skill. I don't have the API key in front of me, but basically can connect your cal.com account here, which can connect to like your Outlook or Google Mail. You can also, create your own prompts on how you want to make that calendar operate, but that's very easy to set up. And then they can obviously, when they ask for an appointment, they can walk through kind of what times are available. Copilot is something that we're going to show you on how to test and train the AI agent, and most importantly, just kind of internal interface to the agent to play around with it. This has a lot of settings and configuration. I won't waste too much time in here, but essentially when we start looking at Copilot, you'll understand what I'm talking about as far as, how you want your Copilot to operate, it's really the internal tool that everybody uses to talk to these agents as a workforce. So think of it like a ChatGPT, but more for enterprise, where you're talking to your agents. You're not talking just to the general LLM. Now, the email skill is an important one that we have to set up here. So I'm going to go ahead and set up salesy and I'm going to use I'm going to use one of the domains I already set up. So you can connect to your own domain to make sure that your mail is being sent through there. And I'm going to just have it, sales, give it a name. Now, these are just defaults, so it doesn't really matter too much. I'm going to just fill out the, so I can save it. But if somebody were to email this agent directly, or if you were just to kind of default to an opening message, you could put those settings here, right? And I'm just going to create a nice little footer here. So once you've created the email skill, so now basically just like that, obviously I had to connect my domain. It's a very easy thing to do. You just go in and you just put your domain in, and then you have to add DNS records and so forth. But once you've got that, then your domain can be used across all your agents. So you can set up your agents with their own email addresses. And now this AI can not only email, but also receive email and have full email conversations. And so if I were to email this right now, it would respond. Wouldn't know what to say really because we haven't finished training, but we're going to connect this agent to control in a minute, which does remind me, if I am going to connect this to our control product, I will need an API key. So I will go ahead and add the API skill to do that. And so now you've kind of understand a few skills, and then I'm going to go, okay, escalation. So we are going to add an escalation skill here. Right now you've probably seen that it's relatively easy. All these things are relatively easy to prop up. This is all just learning about how to set up the settings, but there's no code, right? This is a no-code platform, so you can set up quite a bit of functionality right through here. So in this case, I'm going to say, I want to basically, okay, it's asking me, when do I want to escalate this conversation? And an escalation in this sense is going to be more like, hey, maybe I should get a sales rep involved in this because it's a qualified deal. Or in a support situation, it might be, hey, this person needs to talk to a human. We need to escalate this support ticket. So you can imagine escalation is kind of a wide range of different uses. But in this case, I'm going to say, like, I want to escalate if the user wants a demo, right? And I can optimize this if I want to expand it. But essentially what I'm doing, and then I'm going to say, yeah, we'll say no problem. Or yeah. I'll just say, when is a good time to talk? So, and then maybe if they even say the word demo, I'm going to escalate this, and I'm going to use the same response. Now, I can also, as part of escalation, I can have it, again, email, SMS, webhook. So there's a lot of ways you can alert somebody on when this escalation is triggered. It will also trigger directly in our Copilot tool. So if you're monitoring our Copilot tool, it will escalate that conversation, so a sales rep can go in there, see the conversation, and see it. Or if you want it to land in your Salesforce or in your HubSpot, you can certainly do that too, right? You can have it flag somebody there through a webhook, or obviously email a sales rep directly. All those things are possible. So I've set up now the escalation skill. So we have an escalation skill, and you can create multiple. You can say, oh, I want to escalate and send it to this person if they say demo. But if they say I'm a customer and I have a billing question, I want to send it to this person. So there's a lot of flexibility in these skills. All right, and now feedback skill is something that is important because I want to be able to give my AI feedback, and I want it to learn from my feedback. So this is just basically saying, I want the AI, when I give it feedback through our Copilot tool, I want it to learn. I want it to have reinforcement learning. So we'll show that in a couple seconds. It automatically has live chat set up, so you probably already saw it here. When I first loaded it up, it comes out of the box kind of as our generic live chat. Everything is ready, and is ready and operative. And then here you can actually make customization. You can essentially, this is a wide variety of configuration that you can set up. You can have it. You can obviously embed this obviously on your websites, but you can have it's a multitude of different functionality. I won't go into each one, but they all are very powerful. And most of these features came from other CSI companies that wanted to do things like, if I wanted to put, for example, I want to ask somebody's email before they start chatting, I can make it required, and then it's that easy, right? You create your configuration, and now I can have it where, when somebody wants to chat with my product, now it requires me to put an email. And that's a great way, obviously, since this is going to be a sales agent, well, that's an awesome way for me to capture a lead, right? And so another component is maybe I want to make it, design it differently. So maybe I'm going to have my branding, right? I want to create my own logo, my own coloring. We give you all this capabilities here. Make it really, you can make it, really slick. You can, I want to create a proactive message. So it makes it a little bit more obvious, like something like this, where, when this is what it's going to look like when it's embedded on my website. You get the point. Very, very cool, very easy to set up, and very easy to launch. When you're ready to launch, all you have to do is embed the code right on any website. Now, remember, this is not just one live chat agent you get. This is a live chat interface to one agent, which you can make many, many agents. So a lot of our customers use this embedded inside of products, inside of websites. If you wanted to actually make it like a slider, we have the capability from a design perspective. If you want to make it, you can make it a pop-up, you can make it a sidebar. You could embed this in a product where it launches out and provide inline support. So it's really unlimited as far as how you want to deploy this and have people interface with it. So now I've created an agent that not only can email back and forth, but also can do live chat. And if I wanted to, obviously, we could add voice, SMS, and so forth. So it's got some basic training. I didn't really put too much energy into it. So but I did give it a document about Raia Connect. So it knows a little bit about the product. And I'm just going to go in here, and just to give it an idea is, I'll just say something like, all questions and answers. And that's how easy it is to update your instructions. It's basically one large prompt. Now you're going to refine this prompt over time as you train your agent. But let's go ahead. And so now I've got, I would say, a pretty solid, framework for this agent. It's got an email. There's my embed code if I want to put it on my website. I've got the webhooks that we need to set up still, but other than that, we're pretty much ready to kind of play around with it. So I'm going to toggle now over to Copilot. Now, Copilot is the primary interface for your internal team. This is the interface that you would use to access any and every agent that they have access to. So like a lot of our agents aren't just for public use, like sales. It could be used for internal stuff, like internal support, internal operations. So a lot of the agents just live in Copilot, and you use Copilot as a way to talk to them. So right off the bat, you'll see that I'm in admin mode, which means I actually get, because I'm an admin of the agent, because I created it, I can see all conversations. So lo and behold, I can see what happened on that live chat conversation that I just had a minute ago, right? Where I can see, if you remember, I did like a hello, and it kind of came back with a hello. So this is your kind of one place, omni-channel area where I can see no matter where a conversation happens, whether it's from email or whether it's from live chat or whether it's from Copilot, I can see everything here. So this is like a great example of being able to manage your agents. So not only can I kind of toggle back and forth and see all my agents here, these are all my other agents that I can access, but I can also just drill into this agent and start testing. So I'm going to say, like, I'm going to start testing it and say, all right, well, I'm going to pretend I'm a customer, and I'm just going to say, tell me about, I forgot what product it was. I think it was Connect. So this is kind of your second step once you build out an agent, is you're going to want to say, all right, I'm going to start testing this, see how it answers questions, and then I'm going to go back and forth and adjust its training, right? I'm going to say, it didn't answer this right, or it did answer this correctly, or it's I don't like the tone. I want it to be different. I want it to be funny, or whatever it might be, right? Then it's going to go basically start giving you back kind of how it answers these questions. Now, obviously, this is not a salesy, tony thing, right? Like, look, this is no sales rep would say all this like this, right? So off the bat, I would know, like, okay, this is not good, right? If I ask a sales rep about Connect, I don't want it to answer this way. So one thing I could obviously do is I can say, we could obviously come in here and say bad, and you can say, like, I want you to talk more like a sales rep. But really, this feedback here is really more about that answer. Is that answer good or bad? And in fact, that answer is actually okay. It's the tonality that's the problem. So I'm not going to give it negative feedback on this answer. I actually think it's a good answer, but I need to go back and change my my prompt better, right? So I'm going to actually take my prompt here, and I'm just going to take it the way it is, and I'm actually going to go back to Copilot. I'm just going to ask it to improve it. I'm going to say this prompt is too technical and verbose. I need this agent to talk. I'm just going to tell it needs to talk more like a sales rep, in human tone, and keep answers short but insightful. Be curious and ask questions about the user's desire to use AI. And then I'm going to say, and then when the time is right, ask for a demo. Now, I'm obviously simplifying this, but I think and then here is existing prompt to change, right? So I'm giving it kind of, now, what's interesting about this, I could have done this in ChatGPT, I could have done this anywhere else, but the reality is that this is using the same models. It's still using OpenAI model. And I can have it write my prompt for me, right? You can ask the agent, hey, like, listen, you're doing a great job, but I really need you to, yeah. So I'm going to say, yeah, I want, yeah, to do, yeah. So just write this, yeah. And I'm going to work with the agent, say, hey, we're going to work together here, right? We're going to try to refine your prompt, make it a little bit better. Oh, that's because I triggered the escalation skill there. Anyway, I'll grab this prompt here. So it kind of gave me a nice little prompt. I'm going to copy this and Markdown. And I'm going to go ahead and throw it over and update this guy. So it's really that easy. And again, you can do this in any tool you want, but I just uploaded the new prompt into its agents. And so now it's going to have, a different kind of training, right? And it's going to be a little bit more quippy, hopefully. And then I'm also going to just kind of upgrade the model as well while we're here. It's on low reasoning, which is probably good for a sales rep. But we can also increase the reasoning for like support agents or for coding agents, things like that. But now if I go back, it should give me a little bit of a different, answer to my question, which was originally, tell me about Connect. So you get the idea, which is essentially from start to finish. I don't want to take too much more time on this because I want to get to the questions. But essentially what you saw here is that we went from building the agent, outlining the skills, and then we started to kind of do a back and forth with Copilot. So this interface here, you're giving human feedback, and you're starting to kind of manipulate and start to control how the AI talks. Now, it's getting better, it's kind of keeping it, simple as I asked it to. It, gave me a list of things. I may not say, maybe I'll say, I don't want you to give me bullet points, just keep it conversational. But it did, it did ask me a follow-up question, which is nice, right? So you can see how you can basically train the AI to get better and better and better. And this is the point. So let me just do the final piece of this demo, which is I'm going to actually now, let's say I'm assuming I'm comfortable with it. I'm going to actually go in here and grab the API key because I'm going to go in and set up my raia control. So I'm going to just create a key here. This allows the other application to connect with my agent to use it. So I'm going to copy this API key. Now I'm going to log on over here. This is another product that if you're a customer, you have full access to, which is where we call them missions, but essentially they're campaigns where you can create an outbound email campaign. So think of it like AI native MailChimp or something like that. But instead of it being monologue, which is like a newsletter that goes out and nobody responds to, this is the AI agent's going to email and actually have full conversation. So I'm going to show you how easy it is to set up. So the first thing I'm going to do is just connect my agent. So I can come in here, add my agent. It's just going to ask me for the API key, which I just copied and pasted. And then once I've connected my agent to the system, now I can use Salesy to send out an email. So if I come in here and I want to launch a mission, I can say, outbound prospecting, and I want to, let's say, drive more people to a demo at raia.com. And I'm oversimplifying this, but I'm giving it a mission on what it's going to do. I'm going to choose the email skill because we set that up already. And I'm going to select a test list here to send it to. I'm going to choose Salesy as my agent that's going to actually do the email. And I'm going to actually have Salesy generate the message using AI. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit next. And I'm just going to hit launch. So what I just showed you there is the ability for me to create a sales agent, spin it up. Obviously, there's probably a little bit more time should be required to train it. It has all the skills that I think are needed in order. It's going to escalate. It's going to send me the conversations when it's done and so forth. And now I've got a mission that's ready to launch. Now I'll show you kind of what it looks like when a mission is kind of complete, just to give you an idea. Because part of the reason why we have this tool is we're kind of merging two worlds here. One world is I want to be able to do things that I currently do with agents, right? So like everybody here does email campaigns or outbound campaigns, whether it be for prospecting, support, whatever it might be. So you're still wanting to do that, but instead of it being a user or an email that doesn't, do not reply, or an email that has no conversation, I want to make it dialogue. I want to make it conversational. I want to be able to do it where an agent has the ability to do full conversation. So perfect example here is this is an event or one that we launched. We have some basic data about this and statistics. So this is kind of the human and AI world that we're going to live in. That's weird. where you're going to be able to see, as a human, you're going to want to be able to do the things that we do today, which is like, marketing, sales, support, but you're going to be working in conjunction with the AI itself. And then when somebody actually has a conversation like this with the AI, the AI takes over and does the entire conversation, without you having to worry about it, right? So just like if it were to have a conversation on live chat, on email or SMS, the AI is going to be trained and walk that user through the entire process, whatever the goal is. If it's sales, support, operations, whatever. And so now you're seeing the ability to kind of give agency, and do so, pretty easily. And this works just very much like how you would expect a outbound one. Now I'm just going to touch on one more thing because I think it's important. I talked about it in the last one, but I want to kind of just toggle over to our other product. Now, when we talk about command, what we're talking about here is basically the complexity of training a robust enterprise agent. And what typically happens is that when you want to deploy a support agent, you have a ton of documents. You have to connect it to your knowledge bases. You have to connect it to your ticketing systems and all of that stuff. And so this product does all of that pretty easily right through the point and click. So what basically it's kind of like a Dropbox to start. So you have the ability to create folders, and you can drag and drop your training documents, your information. So if I have a PDF as an example, I can just grab. Let me just find one here. Give me 2 seconds to find one. Is there no PDFs on my desktop? Oh, here's a doc. So if I have a document here and I want to drag and drop, and let's say I want to train my AI on this document, I can, and I can drag as many documents as I want on here. The key is I need to get this document into Markdown so that I can upload it into the vector store, right? And that's a really big pain in the butt to do at scale. And so this tool does it pretty much automatically for you. So, it grabs the document, and it automatically converts it. When you upload it, it converts it into Markdown language, which is the language you want, right, for the AI to understand what it is. And then we basically make it super easy to just push that to your AI agent. So if I want to send that to my AI agent for training, I just pick the agent I want to send it to, and it's off and running. And of course, all of this can be pretty much automated. In that same context, we have these connectors. So, the other component is not all your knowledge is in documents. It could be in GitHub, Gitbook, Google Drive, SharePoint. And so being able to connect to these different systems. So if I want to connect to, for example, my Jira, I can connect to my, once I connect through their API, I can select a project, that I want to put the information in. I can select my Jira project that I want to import in, and then I can start my import. And then again, that brings all that data into command, which is like your knowledge base ultimately, that brings all those documents, gets them in the right format, and then allows you to push them and training. Now, again, I showed you earlier that you could easily do that through raia CX by just dragging and dragging a document. But when you're really talking about going live with an enterprise grade solution where you have multiple sources that are ever changing, so you need to have that integration with Jira because Jira constantly changes, or Salesforce or team support or Zendesk, or also allow your team to be able to upload documents so that you can make sure that the AI has access to all this information in one single place. And so you can imagine, like, some of our customers have thousands and thousands of documents, especially when you talk about the scale, like for example, this customer here has 1,600 documents that they're training this support agent on, right? And everything from user guides to configuration files to so when you're talking about scale and you're talking about the reality of when you build an agent that has to know all of this information, command just makes it super easy for you to drag and drop all that stuff, and AI will it'll actually create a new taxonomy and categorize it for you. It'll actually create a new title for you. It'll summarize it. It'll create all the labels that we should consider. And so when it actually gets uploaded to the AI, it actually has context right? It's not some random file somebody uploaded. AI is now able to really connect the dots there. All right, so that gives you, I think, a great overview. I think that was important. Now I'm going to go ahead and toggle over to Q&A and maybe answer some very specific questions. But I think I wanted to just, I think for a lot of you, this is maybe the first or second time you've seen it, and so it's really important to know, you know, if I start showing you stuff, I didn't want you to be like, okay, I'm way lost. But I think today you saw the 3 or actually 4 main products, which includes our CX where we build the agent, Copilot where we actually interface internally to the agent, and help obviously refine and test it, and live chat, which is the other product you saw, which is more for customer facing or public facing stuff, and then you saw control for marketing campaigns, and then you saw command, which is where you really kind of manage all the data and all the documentation that you need in order to push into your agent for it to have high efficacy, for it to be trained. All right, let's get started. So first question. Well, this is an easy one. Is there recordings of the previous meeting? Yes, we put it on our YouTube channel, but I will upload this one as well. So if you want to share it with other people, there's a little bit of overlap, but it is obviously a different kind of session because I do live questions. But yeah, we pump it to our raia YouTube channel, which I think is linked off our website. The next question is, can you show us how to add a system outage message as a pop-up when a customer opens an AI prompt to ask the question? Yes. Okay. So the best way to do that would be, so I'm assuming because of the question, he's talking about live chat. So how I would do that. So if they're in live chat, for example, let's go ahead and actually use, I'll just use the one we have here, Salesy, because we built it, might as well. So what I would do there is if there's a system outage, and somebody asks about it, I would probably, without knowing exactly how I would know there was a system outage, but if there was, you could basically, there's a lot of ways you can tackle this, right? You could first and foremost, if it was something that you had to deal with and make sure that everybody knew there was a system outage, you could basically say, before answering or before starting a conversation, mention there is a system outage. Now that would obviously that's going to do it for everybody. That may not be what you want, but like now if somebody's going to go in and talk to this agent, right? Like I'm about to right here on the live chat. And I'll just gonna end this chat and start a new one just so you can see. So somebody came in here and said, whatever they're going to support they're going to submit a support ticket. You could bake it into the training so that it obviously mentions it right off the bat. The other way to do it would be through an escalation skill. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not sharing my screen here. Sorry. So what I did is I just went into training and I added it right here, right into the training. Now this would be like probably something that would not necessarily be recommended, but you could certainly do this. Like this is a quick way of doing it. You could just tell the agent, hey, yo, there's a sales outage. And then when somebody goes to the live chat, as you saw here a minute ago, the first thing out of its mouth is, hey, quick heads up, there's a system outage. Another way to do this would be in the escalation skill. So in the escalation skill, I could create, system outage, and I could have it where the escalation prompt is, if anyone mentions an issue that could be related to a system outage, like can't log in, can't access site, etc. And then you can obviously have AI maybe expand that a little bit. And then you can say, we are experiencing. So this is another way you can do it, through the escalation skill. And of course you can add keywords and so forth. And then of course you can auto assign it if you wanted to, assign it to somebody inside of Copilot for them to handle it. But yeah, you could create an outage. You can have an outage escalation always set up. And so like you can basically, so now I have an outage escalation here that's kind of part of the thing. And so the same things would apply, right? If I went back to my training and got rid of this because I don't want it to be part of my prompt anymore, and I were to go back and start a new conversation, it will know that oops, let me get this here. It will know that, hey, this guy's this is an escalation. So how do we deal with that? And so I can come in here. I'm going to go ahead and end this last conversation, start over, and basically say something like, I can't log in. So same basic concept. Now you could, if you wanted to get, you could associate, when you say pop-up, we don't really do pop-ups, but you can do a button. You can create things like, you can create other kind of components where, like if you wanted to come in and have something appear based on that keyword, like a button or something like that, you can certainly get more clever using chat buttons. But essentially, when we talk about how to handle it, it would be probably in the escalation skill or in the or just right directly in the training itself. Again, if you wanted to be able to call a function call, which would be maybe more fancy, and I'll just end it with this. If you did want to go into the agent and actually update this stuff as I did, and you wanted to call a function and see if there's an outage or not, then I would do a function call, which is basically under skills, and there's a whole section in our docs. But essentially, a function call means that I'm going to actually have the AI go check if there is. So here's the functions right here. I'm going to create a function call that says, hey, I've got let's say you set up an API call over here that returns yes or no. And if there's an outage, it returns yes, and if not, no. You can have the AI call that API function, check if there's an outage, and it'll come back and answer. So if you and that's probably the easiest way to do it if you want to make it seamless, assuming that you have something over here in your system that tells you whether there's an outage or not. If it's a human that has to get involved right away, quickly, and there's an outage and they just want to come in and just real quickly update the AI, you can certainly do it the first couple ways I showed you. All right, so let me go to the next one. So here's one that's basically curious about the thesis. We seem to be moving faster as individuals with AI products in each department, but not moving faster as a collective whole. My hope is if we plug raia in as the brain heart of the operation and connect to all the AI tools, we'll solve this not moving fast collectively. Can you talk about your ability to plug into other AI tools that our teams might be using? Yes, absolutely. So there's a few ways that you can obviously incorporate raia. So raia is really much more of the what I would call the agentic platform. And obviously our goal is to launch agentic AI agents that are autonomous. But obviously there's a lot of AI agents that still communicate with your team. A lot of people use, for example, Claude Code. Let me just, or Claude or OpenAI or one of the other tools. So let me see if I can just real quickly log into, as an example, I'll log into Claude. So one of the things that we offer as far as in your agents as well is the ability to, every agent has MCP. And basically what that means is that MCP is kind of is like a way for AI tools to connect to other third-party applications. And so when you're actually in the agent itself, let's just say, like, for example, if I wanted to connect this agent to my Claude, although it doesn't make sense because it's a sales agent, but like, bear with me, just pretend this is like a knowledge base agent. You would go into skills and you would add the MCP skill. And what this is basically like another API skill, but essentially what it is you're telling the agent, hey, I want to connect to this agent using other tools. So whether it's Claude or Copilot or ChatGPT, you can set up your MCP skill so that you can incorporate your agents into your existing platforms. So so whether it's Claude or ChatGPT or other systems, you can now connect, one AI tool set with an agent. And again, every agent has its own MCP, so that keeps it isolated. So that's one way that you can incorporate or kind of merge agents, bring agents into the fold of tools that people like. So if they want to communicate with AI agents on raia through ChatGPT or through Claude, they certainly can. They do not have to go through our Copilot interface. The primary reason for our Copilot interface, although I do recommend obviously trying it out, is it does have a lot of really solid functionality that some of these other tools does not. For example, obviously out of the box, you can connect to any agent you want within raia and start using it. But it also has the ability for you to manage and provide human feedback, which is good for training the agent. It makes it easier for you to test, right? To test the agent. So at a minimum, Copilot is a great testing, training mechanism, but it still can be very much a UI, right? There's no seat licensing. There's no limit to how many users you can have. There's no limit to how many agents you can have. So the reality is that, in some cases, it might make sense to just have people access Copilot. Certainly, it's the most popular tool amongst a lot of the use cases that you've probably heard about, which is like in the M&A side of CSI and the corporate finance side. There's hundreds, almost 1,000 people using some of those common agents that we've launched to get access to really valuable information, whether it be, and so you could still get access to that via these other tools as well. It's not limiting, but certainly you can do that here. But on a more philosophical level, as far as moving together as a team, I think what's important from my perspective of when you're developing an agentic workforce is to understand that tools are going to get you some lift, but at some point you've got to direct your teams to start building at least the beginnings of an agent. And that they're probably doing that now. They're just not handing it off to an agentic platform. So they might be building like a very nice prompt that helps them analyze, let's say, a sales proposal, or maybe they build a really nice prompt that helps them generate a QSR or whatever. They're building things, but they're kind of living in no man's land with their own prompts. So what you want to do is you want to get all those really good prompts and you want to start bringing them in here and harden them as agents and then share them with other people. So tools are a great testing bed for building the beginnings of an agent. But then, it's very hard for you to connect a tool like Claude and have it download 10,000 tickets or 1,000 knowledge base articles and actually have it become a support agent. And also you can't obviously have an interface to your customer through live chat through that. So eventually you're going to have to move a lot of that functionality and make it agentic, but it doesn't mean that you can't still use those tools. Tools and raia work very, very well together. It's a great combination. I think it's just the missing piece that might be what you're looking for, which is when I build something on a tool and I want to make it more formal and make it an agent, then you launch it as an agent. You give access to people that need access to it, whether they access it through Copilot or through Claude or ChatGPT or Teams, it doesn't really matter. But you now have this process of like formalizing this agent that can actually do work. And then hopefully you build agents that can do work autonomously. And then everybody starts sharing those agents. Because one of the things I think is a challenge, and I'll just mention this, is when you have too many people doing too many things and many of those things are the same thing, you're going to get into sprawl and you're going to have the same basic functionality being built 10 or 20 or 30 times by different people that aren't communicating. And if you don't put a formal process of, okay, we're going to build something, if you've built this, if anybody has something that analyzes our financial sheets, or if anybody's built something that creates sales proposals or answers RFPs, let's start putting our those prompts or those data or that training together, and let's make it an agent that everybody shares. And that way we're all working toward one singular agent that can actually evolve and be a great resource, and not waste tokens and waste time building that same thing over and over and over. And so I do think this is like the cultural challenge of, as we move into the day of AI, is how do we actually, get our teams to think that way and start building that way, and think about everybody in your company, especially the people who are domain experts, are developers now. And in a weird way, development is shifted away from coding, like I used to do, or still do, for 30 years. And it's now more into the business mind. Like, who's the business person who knows how to do support and knows where all the support tickets and knowledge base and understands how to, how that functions and how that workflow works? That person is now the product manager of this new agent that you're going to launch that does tier 1, tier 2 support. And now your support team is the user of that agent, and they're going to access that agent either through raia Copilot or through some other tool. And then when you want to expose that to your customers to really automate support, then they would access raia, that agent, through raia via live chat or through email. So that life cycle is something I think that you probably need to start incorporating. Again, has nothing to do necessarily with specifics of what raia needs. That is just, I think, where the world is going, right? We have a lot of people doing a lot of things on tools, but we need to automate this stuff. We need to get real work done automatically. We want AI to do more than just respond to our prompts. We want it to actually do functional work, but it requires a little bit more of a sophisticated platform to build that. It needs to have all those things I talked to you about, all those skills that I showed you. It has to have workflows, webhooks, APIs. It needs to be able to connect to these third-party systems. And that is an advanced section of that roadmap that I've talked about. Okay, let's do the next one. But the reality is, yes, raia could plug into pretty much any AI tool because we're MCP. So MCP is kind of like the standard that everybody's kind of has acknowledged. So OpenAI, Claude, and everybody else is on board with. So here's another question. I believe raia can work with Salesforce. Is that the only with command? If we use a native AI offering in Salesforce but want to use raia internally, can raia feed from Salesforce knowledge base? Yes, the answer is yes. So there is a clear difference between what you have natively in Salesforce or natively in any SaaS application, right? Every application is going to have some sort of AI, embedded AI inside of it. And there's value there, right? I think, unfortunately, they're probably still charging you too much money. They're still making it part of a seat licensing. I don't think that's a fair way to price AI because you're probably overpaying. But for the most part, like, it's a nice stopgap if you want to, if it gives you value. But when you talk about building out an enterprise agent and connecting to like a Salesforce, you're ultimately going to want to, and so let me show you kind of here. You're going to want to connect the not only you're going to want to connect to Salesforce and grab that information in, right? You're going to create your connection here, and that's going to import anything and everything you want to import in. But remember, you're trying to also convert that into a vector store. So the big difference here between having an AI that kind of searches your Salesforce, which is basically what it's doing inside of your embedded version, inside of the Agentforce product of Salesforce, you're basically doing a search and find within the Salesforce database. It's grabbing the results of that, and it's presenting that in a chat-esque experience. The difference between that and an enterprise agent like raia, what raia builds, is that we're bringing all that knowledge base in from Salesforce, but we're also bringing all that knowledge base in from documents, from other sources, from SharePoint, from Gitbook, GitHub, wherever else it's coming from. And all that is being transported into one vector store. And so that's the magic of AI. You're kind of sacrificing the magic of AI when you use embedded tools like that, because basically all it's doing is it's filling up the context window with whatever the top search queries it's doing. And it's very much like it's kind of bypassing the whole magic of AI. The magic of AI is putting a bunch of stuff into a vectorized database, in a multidimensional vectorized database. And then you're giving it a question, which is ultimately a vector. And it's going into that vector database, and it's finding all the nearest neighbors that gives it a comprehensive, better answer. That's the magic that when we talk to ChatGPT, that's what we experience. That's the difference between ChatGPT and a Google search. A Google search is exactly what Salesforce is doing inside of its AI. It's just doing a basic search and then bringing back the top results, just like Google, and it's giving you kind of like, okay, the chat experience of that. It's throwing it through an LLM, but not a good one, because it doesn't want to waste tokens on that, because it never priced that into your seat licensing, right? So it's just going to be basically like a nice searchable chat interface. But when you're talking about answering complicated questions that your customers are going to give you, or your support team is going to have, or analyzing code, or doing debugging, or doing complex knowledge base searches like what we do for corporate with finance and M&A, then you have to have everything in one vector store. So it connects the dots that would never be connected through a search query. So there's a clear difference between the two. Command is what you want to investigate there. If your customer asks for your license key, it's, you know, command is part of your part of your platform. We don't charge for all of our apps or anything, and we don't charge for licenses, for seat licenses, for how many people access it. We don't charge per connector or anything like that. You know, everything we do is usage based. So if you end up launching something and it's used, you know, then obviously that's part of your fees. But other than that, get a license key, play around with command, and see what happens, and see it and compare the two, because there is going to be a huge difference between searching a vector store that's been trained on not just your Salesforce knowledge base, but everything else, and what you're going to experience inside of Salesforce. And again, if you want to expose that to customers, you know, so that they can they can self-serve, or expose that to more people that may not have Salesforce licenses, this is where raia could fill that gap as well. I'm not saying don't do the other one. I'm saying there's a difference, and maybe it ends up being that you use both. You know, everybody has can do that. But inside of here, we continue to add more and more connectors, but we pretty much support, I would say, a high percentage of the connectors here. If there's a connector that you need that you don't see here, either use the MCP server, which is kind of a catch-all, or just ask our dev team or ask our support team to see if we can add it for you. It's something that we could do pretty easily, assuming that it has an API. All right, next one. In support, we have multiple software platforms managed by different teams. Can you describe the best way to organize this in raia command? Would you suggest different organizations? Yes. I would, you could set up different organizations inside of command if you want to. You can also do it at the project level as well. So there's kind of multiple tiers. I can come in here and at the organization level, has its own number of users. So if you kind of look at team here, you can at an org level, you can invite team members, but you can also at a project level. So I'm going to click on a project under my org. You can also restrict access here as well. So you can do it at the, if access is a concern, you can certainly do it at both the project level, and at the project level, you can get really granular as well inside of the, allowing, for what kind of access you want. But yeah, if you wanted to do at an org level, you could do it there as well. So all you would have to do there is, if you want to create a new org, you simply just hit the plus button, right? And I'll just do a raia, ask me anything, and it'll show up under your, under your account, and then you would be the only user here. So if I go to this org, you'll see there's no projects yet. But if I go to team and so forth, yeah, you'll see that your team members, and then you can invite your team members here. And then under that org, they can create projects, and that allows them to have more granularity on who they want to have access. So you could have an org owner who is the team leader, and then under there they could create the projects and so forth. And then you can also, another reason why you might want to do that at the org level is because we connect agents at the org level. So if you wanted to not have your, if you wanted to segment your agents, like, so if you let's say you have a support agent for this product and a support agent for that product, you didn't want to have this team over here access this guy's agent, then yes, then you would want to do it at the org level, because we definitely, when you connect to your agents, you connect it at the org level. That's a great question, by the way. I had to think about that one. Next question. Do we have a step-by-step documentation for creating an AI agent that was discussed on the last call? We are looking to build a new agent for one of client legacy projects. An idea is to train or ground the agent using available business specification documents, existing regression tests, previously executed processing data. The agent should help build project knowledge and answer questions related to project functionality, business rules, And then if it would be useful if the agent could help identify missing regression scenarios and support the creation of additional regression tests. Yes, absolutely. Like this is a kind of a classic support agent that in the technical side. First and foremost, what I would do is start with command. That's where everything starts. So let's just say, let's just use your example. So I would come in here and I would create your, you have your org. I would come in here, create your project. And so let's call it, regression agent, just for simplicity. And once I create the project, now basically think of this as Dropbox. That's all this really is. I mean, at the end of the day, you're not going to see as many folders over. These are all organizations, by the way. It's only because I have access to a handful of stuff here, but like you're just going to see a few project or orgs there. But now I've got my documents in here. So like to your point, like if I were to kind of look back at your question, you said something like, we're going to train on available business specification documents, regression tests, and so forth. So how I would probably do it is I would then come in here and under this folder here, I would create a folder called regression tests, right? Might be one, where you can start dragging and dropping those in there. You might want to create another folder called, project specs or product, whatever. This is basically like just creating a folder. Now, if you wanted to get really fancy and you want the AI to build this out for you, you can also, by the way, go into settings here, and you can create your own folder templates. And you can actually have AI build it out for you. So if I wanted to build out a folder template for, so if I say build a folder template for product testing, regression tests, specs, etc. What's really cool about this is like if you don't want to sit there and actually manually and maybe you don't know what to add, like maybe you don't know what the AI would really do good at training on, and you wanted to build out your folder structure. See, now it built out this entire folder structure for me. Project plan and scope, stakeholders, functional specifications, design documents. Again, this might be overkill, but my point is like you could actually create this entire folder structure, and use it as in future. So if you wanted to create another project, all you would have to do is, and now if I went into projects and let's say I wanted to create a new project, and this one will be regression testing 2 because I want to use my new folder structure, right? I can come in here, use product testing, and boom, there's there's my whole folder structure created for me. So there's a cool little things like this where it saves you time and energy and kind of knows like, oh, and why I like this is because when I start, and you go, Rich, this is kind of like over engineered, but yeah, maybe not. But then if I come in here and say, if I want to upload a bunch of documents, so let's go ahead and I'm just going to drag and drop a bunch of documents here. And these won't have anything to do with testing, but you'll see my point here in a second how it would work. I can, let's say, grab all these documents that I want to upload in here, and I can actually have AI organize them for me, right? So, so if I wanted to actually have them, send through and process it, I can do so, and then upload it that way as well. So there's a lot of cool things in here. So back to your point though, when we talk about a process of following how to actually do this and how to train the AI and how to actually build out your prompt or your system instructions and your training, typically how you would do this, and there's a training course on docs.raia.com. So I'm just going to just quickly show you that so you'll know where it is. If you go to AI training, this is where I would focus. The AI 101 is really more basic, but here is a full training course on building an AI agent. I would focus mostly on the training and understanding how to train. The data transformation and building and optimize your vector store. Or also we have this other course, which is even more advanced, the agentic design, where you could really get into understanding a little bit more around some of the components that we use, like when we build out prompts. So here's like we have a whole thing about prompting, training, and so forth. Now, realize that you have to read all this, and that might take time. I would probably default more toward asking AI to help you. So what I typically do is either I'll use a raia agent or I'll use ChatGPT or something like that. And what I'll do is I'll basically say, hey, I'm building an AI agent. I need help building my system prompt, and I need help understanding and giving instructions on how to. And here's the documents that I'm going to use for my vector store. So what I would do, the first thing I would do is upload your documents into Command, okay? And then, so let me try to show you what a project we already did. So once you've uploaded your documents into Command, we'll convert them into Markdown. So you're going to upload docx's, you're going to upload PDFs, PowerPoints. You're going to upload all these different documents. You do not want to upload those documents into an AI to help you draft up your system instructions and your vector store, because they're going to be too big and they're not going to be read that well. So once you convert them to Markdown, you'll notice over here that we have a little bit of a download button here. So you just download your Markdown line. You can download all the Markdown files into one zip. So it downloaded it over here into a zip. And now you can use that. So you're going to get that zip, and it's going to have all the Markdown files, and they're going to be very small because Markdown is text only. And use that, drag and drop that into ChatGPT, or drag and drop into a raia agent, or whatever tool of choice, Claude, and say, here's my training of my AI agent. Help me write the system prompt and help me craft and help me improve the training of this AI agent based on these specs. And use AI to build the rest of that, and then upload whatever it gives back to you into the vector store and into the system prompt. And that's how you build an AI agent, working with the tools. And we just make it a lot easier for you to drag and drop a whole bunch of documents and then put it into Markdown. And then those Markdown files are automatically ready to go and to put into the vector store as well. So when you're actually then building the agent, you're going to upload our Markdown link, our Markdown files that you downloaded, whatever Markdown files that the tool gave you, and then it's going to give you the system prompt, and you're going to cut and paste that system prompt right into the system prompt of the AI agent. And that's basically what our team does all day. They're just toggling back and forth between Command, which is getting everything prepped and organized. The other cool thing, just by the way, if I wanted to kind of drill into this, that you want to make sure that you can see here is when we actually convert this into Markdown, we do a lot of cool stuff. And it's important to identify this. The first thing we do is we add YAML. We add like a header to allow for the AI to find it easier. So we'll add like basically metadata to it. And we'll also format it, quite, in a way that allows the AI to better chunk it. So there is some value in using Command to convert all of your documents beyond just the conversion. We actually truncate it. We make sense of it. We create chunks that allow the AI to have a better time and easier time finding it in the vector store, and so forth. Now, just a mental note, by the way, and this is just a side note before I get to the next question. There are two ways that you can integrate with your existing systems. Most of what I've talked about today is training. So if you have a bunch of data that you need to put into the AI agent for it to access for training, then it belongs in the vector store. But if you need real-time access, let's say somebody puts a ticket number in and accesses your Salesforce for an update on that ticket, that is not something that you would use a vector store for. That's where you would use function calls and use an API connector to Salesforce. So I just want to distinguish that to those two things. So when you're building an agent and you're talking about what you want it to do, the functionality you want, if you want to do anything that's going to be a real-time access to a third-party system, you're going to want to create a function call that calls that system and brings back that data. If you're talking about training an AI on general knowledge so that it is able to connect the dots and bring back very verbose answers, you're going to want to have that in a vector store. And that's the primary goal of Command here, is that we know that you have a lot of documents. We know they're a mess. We know that they're, most likely, if you're like any other CSI company or any other of our customers, it's a random slew of stuff. Putting in Command is your first step on a journey of organizing and getting your stuff in ducks in a row, so that you can start feeding it to different AI agents so they can have higher efficacy, and you can manage it all here. And not only can you view the documents and manage them, but you can also, there's a lot of functionality here that I'm not talking about, right? Like you can add, we have ability to add notes. We automatically create search indexes. All this stuff that is would take you hours or days or weeks, or even if you had the capability of doing it technically, or you had somebody on your team that understood how to do it, we made it super easy. So we go from the complexity of machine learning and large language models and integrating into chunking and embedding models down to a drag and drop interface. And that is kind of the goal of raia. All right, so next question. These documents are stored in vector database only to enable RAG. Yes, of course. Yeah. So vector data, I mean, basically RAG. So that's a great question. I've got an image that, in case anybody doesn't know what RAG is, because it's important to understand how these AIs work. So when you think about an AI and you ask it a question, right, up here on the top left, you submit a prompt, it's going through a series of steps to deliver an answer. And you know, we call this RAG in the sense of it's basically retrieving, it's retrieval augmented generation. So basically what it's saying is it's a fancy acronym for basically saying, hey, not everything I need that I need to answer this question is in the large language model, right? So when you're on ChatGPT and you ask it a question, for the most part, it's looking at your conversation, and it's looking at anything you might have uploaded as a document, and it's looking at the large language model, and it's making sense of that. When we're talking about enterprise, like when we're talking about deploying a raia agent, we need to add more layers in there, right? We need to be able to not only analyze the prompt and the conversation that you've given it. So the system prompt is in there, and if there's any functions that you've added, they're in there. Then we combine that prompt and start putting a lot of this stuff together. And then we might access a vector store and do a query. So basically it takes the combination of those prompts and it does the first query. It goes, hey, this guy's asking about, you know, how to change his password. Okay. Are there any function calls that have to do with that? Yes. Okay. Bring that prompt in. Okay. Now let's combine that prompt. Now let's go into the vector store and use that as a prompt to say, hey, vector store, is there anything in here in the 10,000 documents you've been trained on, is there anything in here about changing password? And the vector store goes, yes, there's actually multiple things in here about changing password. We should probably ask him what version of software he's on, or what software he's using, because I've got 3 answers. And so it gives him back 3 answers to the prompt, to the AI, and the AI goes, okay, good to know. Then it goes to the next thing. It goes, hey, is there any tools that I need to call, you know, in order to continue to access and execute this request? And it might say, oh, well, we have web search, but we don't really need to do a web search because we already have the answer from the vector store. But if we want to do a web search, we could certainly go and query the knowledge base, public knowledge base, if we want to, but I think we've got the answer. We're going to skip that and move on to the next one. Then it finally takes the combination of all that, gives it to the large language model, and then the large language model kind of makes senses of it. It makes it more conversational. It also obviously puts it into more of a you know, compartmentalize it, makes it more, you know, maybe leverages the power, I guess, of that language model to bring it to fold, to kind of put all the pieces together. And then it might return the result back conversationally and say, hey, yes, we do know how to change a password, but we have 3 different products that you might be referencing. Can you tell me more about the product you want? And then the user says, okay, it's product 1. And then that would then go again through the RAG, including the conversation, including the 2 previous messages that were sent. Then it would streamline through the RAG again and then come back with the answer, which it already had, but maybe it just wanted to clarify before it gave the final answer because it didn't know of which 3. So to the user's question, absolutely. You know, raia is essentially a very much a plug and play. It's not all it is, but it certainly is a big part of it, is setting up that RAG system for you, right? So that you don't have to tie all those pieces together. But we also support, you know, other elements that go beyond RAG, right? We also support agent-to-agent communication, which is more of an orchestration component. We support a wide variety of more advanced functionality that is not typically part of a RAG system. So there is other things that are encompassed in kind of the totality of the experience of how an AI answers a question. Things like we have other AI agents monitoring the conversation. Like we showed you the auditor, we showed you the escalation skill. Those aren't typically part of a RAG, but we make it easy to to add it into without having to programmatically create all those function calls, right, to do those things. So yes, I mean, it's definitely a sophisticated RAG system. The next question is, we have created a support agent, which is essentially an assistant to our support team when handling customer tickets. Creating this agent required us to create knowledge base of documents which the support agent could digest and use in their responses. Knowing that these documents are held in support agent's vector store, can we refer to these if we created a separate knowledge base agent, or we need to treat this as completely new? That's a great question, Graham. So there's a couple ways you can attack this. Let's start with like the obvious. We'll start with a couple. So like so the first thing I would say is when you go into our platform raia CX, if this is a knowledge base that you want to be able to manage in a central location and have multiple agents automatically be part of, I would suggest maybe creating a pack as an option. So you would come in here, create a pack. So I would call this like general support documents, okay? And I'll just put raia here. And so what a pack is essentially, and you know, you can actually have pack instructions, like you can, if this is something you want to incorporate, you know, these are, in this case, you're just morely talking about documents that you're training on. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab a couple of my documents and put them in here, just kind of show you how it would work. And so now I'm creating a pack. And I'm going to share it with my org as well so that people can access it, right? So now I have this pack. So you'll see that it kind of looks like an agent, but it's not. It's just basically a module where I've added all these documents and I've got, and it includes some instructions. In some cases, you may not even want to include any instructions. If you don't want the instructions to be added to your existing instructions, you can just basically create a comment, right? These are, you know, but if you wanted to include instructions, like, you know, you can certainly do that here in the pack. And then what I would do is I would go, now you go into your agents. So let's go ahead and use Salesy as our example. And you would go into skills, training, and you would add this pack. And so I would add the raia general support pack, right, which I just created. And add that. Okay. And so now it's connected here. Now that's only going to connect it one time. So that means I've imported it. So you can see right here, it's imported it one time, and that's it. So if it's a one-time thing, that's how I would do it. Now, if it's a ongoing thing, I'm going to upload this pack on an ongoing basis, which sounds like it might be your case, then we would want to do link pack. So you would add it as a link pack. Now, when you add it as a link pack, what's going to happen is it's going to basically, it's going to now be linked into my support agent. But if I go back to my pack and I, like, you know, let's say fast forward 3 days from now, and I want to upload a new document. So I'm going to upload another document now. I'm going to upload, let's say, this new one here. So now the pack has been updated, right? So now it's been updated with a new document. So now if I go back to my agents and I go to my my training, now you'll see there's an update available. And so now it's up to me, okay, hey, there's been an update to this pack. Do I want to update it? And if I hit update, then yes, then I can update it. So that's one way to do it, okay? Another way to do it is if you want to do it through command. Well, another way to do it is if you have an agent if you have two agents and you always want to share the same vector store, no matter what, and you're never going to update the other vector store, I could also go in and say, all right, I'm going to go into advanced settings, and I'm going to actually put a different vector store that's already on a different agent here, and I'm going to override this one. So essentially, you can have two agents sharing the same brain. That's another way that you could attack your situation. And the third part would be in command. If you wanted to basically upload your documents in here, and you had, like, for example, here you had a shared support those same documents here, and you wanted to publish them to multiple agents, you could do it from command as well. You know, it's more of a I'm going to send these documents for training to this agent, right? and then I'm going to, send it to the other agent next. So again, different ways of attacking that same problem, depending or question, just different ways of thinking about how you want to configure it. If you were to connect it to the same vector store, then you would know that every time you updated that one vector store, those two agents would always have access to that same vector store. Typically, we have one agent, one vector store, but you can have multiple agents accessing the same vector store if that's where you choose it. Or you could create a pack, or you could just manually deal with it on an ongoing ad hoc basis through command, or all of the above. I could have published my documents through command to that vector store, knowing that it's linked and so forth. So there's a lot of ways to skin that cat for sure. All right, let's go to the next one. Can raia ingest and process video content in order to generate knowledge-based articles and accurately answer those queries? The answer is we do support transcripts. Unfortunately, you do not want, you basically just need to upload your videos into any sort of video platform and grab the transcripts. We can grab them from YouTube if you upload them to YouTube and activate the transcripts, or Wistia or Vimeo or anything like that. But yeah, no, uploading an MP4, we don't typically like doing that, because what it's basically making, we would then have to, spend the money. You would spend money on converting that video into or uploading that video into some video service, and which nobody really wants us to do. So I would suggest that if you're going to plan on using videos and transcripts as a source of data, just get the videos into a kind of a system that has transcripts. If you don't have a system, you can certainly find tools out there that would transcript it for you. But I would use like a YouTube or something like that. That way you're not paying money for it. So transcripts, absolutely. We train on that quite a bit. Emma is our basic otter plan with 30-minute meetings to record longer meetings. Upgrade to Pro. That's somebody else's. So that's just an AI trying to upsell me. How can vector database be maintained regarding deprecation? I mean, what if I upload a document out of date or some point has to be deleted, or what if raia pulled a lot of information out of CRM system through an API? Yeah, so there's a variety of ways you can handle this. One of the things that command does for you is, when you upload a document into an agent and you remove it from here, you archive it, it will remove it from that vector store. You can also do that programmatically through API. Obviously, you can log into when you go into the document store here, which is another view. You can also view your documents here. If you're removing a document here, you can certainly, by unclicking this, you're removing it from the vector store, but you're keeping the file in your raia system, and you can always re-upload it to the vector store, but that will remove it from the vector store entirely. Another thing you can do, as far as like deprecating a document, probably is going to be the easiest thing is going to be either, managing this. One of the reasons why we created command is to manage your documents here, as well as to make it easy for you to delete. So if I delete this document here, as an example, then it will, and if it's in a vector store, it'll retrieve it and remove it from there. So again, it's basically something like that. Now, if you're kind of importing it from a source, let's say you're importing it from like a Zendesk or Salesforce, obviously, if that's the source of truth, you're going to want to delete it there. And then when we grab and update and bring it back into the system through the connectors, it will refresh that data for you. So it will basically re-upload that information. So when it brings in when it imports that data, when command imports data in, and we do a resync, and whether it's a resync, you can put this on a timer or you manually do it, it will coordinate that and remove that data as well. So it really does depend on where the source of data came from. If it was a document you uploaded into command and you want to remove it, you could just remove the document. If it's something that's synced up, then you would want to do like a resync. Now, many cases, if you want to find out if that document is still being referenced, one of the cool things about using Copilot, and you probably noticed, and it's a great way to do training, is when you ask it a question, it will provide, let me find one that's actually got references here. When you ask questions on your AI agent, it will provide, I'm trying to find one that's actually, yeah, it will provide sources, on where it got it from, but I think the sales ones are turned off. Let me go to support here. It'll provide citations, and it'll show you what document that it used, in the vector store to grab that data. So that's a great way to find out if you still have that artifact sitting there, if it's kind of like looming, if you will, because so you'll see here, like it'll put like a citation number and show you what file, in the training it's getting it from. And of course, you would want to find that. Now, if it's something small and minor, and you kind of don't have the time to maybe it's a small adjustment, you could also use human feedback and basically say, all right, hey, just so you know, we no longer are open on Saturdays or something like that, right? And that will then get uploaded into the feedback skill, which will get uploaded into training, and it should do a pretty good job of being incorporated in your training. Now, again, this is more for like fine tuning and small things. If it's a very big overhaul of documentation, then I would suggest removing and getting rid of. And if it's something you want to do programmatically, our API obviously supports it as well. Next one. Is there any easy way to feed some specific folder in my Exchange mailbox to a new agent, make it a source of training? The idea is to feed all messages, conversations about requirements and issues from a specific customer that we are working on, and then get a clear answer from agent about specific requirements. So, I mean, I think I always get a little bit nervous connecting agents to emails and email boxes and stuff like that. It's just because, it's a little bit of a gray area as far as like where you're wanting to get that training. And also, I think raw emails aren't always the best training raw. So you're going to want to create derivative data from that. So I think pulling that programmatically out of your Exchange, it might be easier to put it maybe into like a what I would call like a safer place inside of your Microsoft, like a SharePoint or a folder inside of your SharePoint first, and then bring that in and connect our command to that. That way there's like a holding bay. The thing I want to caution everybody about is when you start connecting agents to personal Gmail, personal docs, and things like that, there's certainly a non-zero amount of risk. One of the reasons why we take a zero trust approach with raia, and everything we do goes through APIs, which have limited scope and completely controllable by your IT department, is that we want to make sure our agents are only accessing information that is A, valuable, but B, it's authorized to do so. And also, if it only has rights to read and not write, then that should be obviously part of the scope, right? And so unfortunately, sometimes when these tools, if you connect your existing tools into your existing workspace, it's kind of almost assuming that it's you, and it's inheriting your permissions. So, one bad prompt could certainly, inside of one of these tools that you're using, like a Copilot, Microsoft Copilot, or Claude, or ChatGPT, if you're connecting it to these different systems, certainly there's some things that can happen that were unintended, right, through a lazy prompt. So I always always like to have a holding bay. Part of what command is like your centralized holding bay. Everything that goes into command, a human is basically said, yes, it's okay to have this data in this system so that my AI can train on it. And so there's a little bit of more control, a little bit more of oversight there. So yeah, I mean, if you can get that data out of your Exchange mailbox and put it into a SharePoint, certainly you could ingest that and start to play around with and converting it. That being said, I probably would still take that data and as like raw data, and then still throw it through an agent to what I would call anonymize it, and also generalize it and create derivative data. So there might be another step in there before you give it to an AI as training. We do that quite a bit with tickets. A great example is when we build a support agent, we might ingest, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 tickets, but we don't want to just put the tickets in the training because there's actual customer data in those tickets. So we'll run it through and call what we call derivative data. So we'll anonymize it and we'll basically just create knowledge base articles off of what was learned in those tickets, or we'll just simply use the tickets as a way to train and test the AI and never use the content for training. But this always depends on the use case and always depends on the data. But just be careful about taking what I would call raw data that might include PII, it might include specific data about the customer, and just generically putting it into an agent that anybody and everybody can access. If you're building an agent specifically for that customer or specifically only for your use, well, then I'm less concerned, because if it's only going to be you that's accessing it, then it's not too big of a concern to include that PII. But just make sure that when you think about when you're deploying this, what you're training on this AI on is what people will have access to. So just make sure that you either clean it or restrict access. Next question is, where can I see the raia command? Why can I not access it? I can see two sections, build agents function. Okay, so basically, a raia command is a separate access. So you're going to want to go to raiacommand.com to access that. So you're going to see something like this. Let me log out. Well, just go to raiacommand.com. We will be linking it with it. So raia 2 is what you're talking about. You have access to basically what's called CX, which is our raia 2 platform. So our raia 2 platform right now, we will be adding command as another link over here soon. That will be shortly. But for now, this is basically your CX platform, which is where you build your agents and where you can access Copilot. But for raia command, just simply go to raiacommand.com. And if you don't have your license key, email support and they will give it to you, and then sign up. It's as long as you have a license key, it's no additional cost. You can the reason why we keep it separate, by the way, right now is that, as I mentioned when I started the call, the type of user that's going to be using raia command, as well as what it's being used for, is probably going to be a different profile than the user that's going to be building the agents or accessing the training or accessing the core of the agent. And so we try to keep those worlds somewhat isolated, so that there's less confusion, but also allows you the flexibility of giving people access to command that you don't want to have any access to the agents, or limited access to what they can do with agents. So it just gives you that full flexibility. We do this with a lot of our products too, because raia command and raia control are completely open source for CSI companies. So if they wanted to go in and make and take our code and make adjustments to it, that's another reason why we keep it separate. Whereas raia CX is not open source, but it's obviously, because we're a CSI company, it's a forever product within CSI. But some of these other products that we're building, we're actually letting other companies within CSI help co-develop or spin off and remix. And again, this is part of our vision to build really cool products and share it amongst the ecosystem throughout CSI. This is a very important point to make, because as we continue to build more and more products, and as we continue to build more and more specific agentic products, we want to empower everybody who's on the raia platform to have a full advantage of that. And we don't want to be restrictive, and we also want to leverage the entirety of the user base we have, which is over 1,000 users now in CSI, to embrace this, right, and to contribute. So just another little bit of an offshoot. Next question. Okay, so I create the agents in raia, but the connectors in raia command, right? Yes, exactly, right. Partially also the reason why this is the case is you're able to have way more control over what you want to connect with at the org level within command as well. So it gives you just way more flexibility. If, for example, one of the previous questions is that I have a company with 3 different divisions and I want to separate them all. So by default, it's just so much easier to do that through the command interface, right? Than have to worry about forcing that to be done in raia 2. In raia 2, you can have one org with all the agents, but then have the flexibility in command to make it like as flexible as you want. So, and then how will the agents, how the agents will use the connectors configured in command. So right now, the connectors in command are you connect to your systems, and that they're connecting and pulling in data for training. If you want to actually connect to through those connectors through a agent like a function call, which is a completely different use case, then you would have to connect to those things through the through an MCP or through an API, or through a function call from an agent or through a workflow. So those are 2 distinct things. One is I want to grab information out of my third-party apps to better train my AI. The other is I want my AI to connect and talk to these third-party apps. You can do both, but one is a function call over here that you set up in raia 2 and the NCX, and then over here from a training perspective, that's all done in command. And the function call stuff, that's where it starts to get a little bit, like, I would say not too crazy, not too complicated, but it does require some thought. And we do have a team here, and if you have some questions about how to do that, we have documentation, obviously, but if you need guidance on that, or if you're already working with us as a customer, we can help guide you. I would say the most complicated thing about AI agents, even though we've simplified 95% of it, we still, the complication, and this is just kind of what it is, there's no way around it. It's still one of the most complicated things to do is connecting an agent to your third-party applications, partially because these third-party applications aren't really agentic friendly. As some of them have deployed MCP, some of them have made their APIs a little bit better, but it usually requires some sort of workflow or some sort of function that needs to be built in order to connect an agent to these third-party apps. And obviously that's always the case, right, when you do integrations. But I would say that integrations is the area where it's still a little bit of a technical element. So if you have somebody on your team that's technical, that understands APIs, that understands how to hook into APIs, then definitely want to bring them in on that conversation, and we can help guide that. Or obviously, if you're working with us and you're using our services, we're happy to help set that up for you as well. But yeah, I mean, if I were to kind of explain the complexity of building out an AI agent, first of all, building the infrastructure, we made super simple, but that's complex. We made simple. Training an AI agent on a high volume of documents and connecting to training materials that are in third-party apps used to be very hyper complex. We've made it very simple with command. Integration, what we typically do is we either use an open source workflow engine like N8N to build out the workflows that you function call, or if you want to build it from scratch and build a function that you can access through an API for your own existing systems, you can do that as well. But of course, our AI agents out of the box have the function skill, the webhook skill, and the API skill that give you the capability of connecting the dots to whatever third-party app that you want to hit real time. And I'm assuming that's what you're trying to do. Maybe someday, I mean, we're trying to make that easier. Don't get me wrong. It's just that we've done about 300-400 of these implementations with a variety of these different systems. And unfortunately, every time we meet a new customer, we meet a new different way they've implemented Salesforce or Zendesk or whatever. So it's not even about the complexity on the AI side. It's about the dynamics of the systems that we typically connect with are always configured differently. The workflows are completely different. So sometimes there's customization that's required. That is the downside of having to integrate to these old systems. If it was up to me, we would try to move as much of that data or much of that information into an AI native system. That would make life easier, or at a minimum, make sure that you have MCP set up so that the AI can talk to that MCP server. And again, I showed you already how easy it is to set that up on our side. Can you automate connections in command? For example, if I want to update the Bitbucket repository? Yes, of course. Inside of command. So if you go into the connectors, And I think you asked about Bitbucket, and I don't have Bitbucket, but let's call it GitHub for now. It works the same. When I import a repository, I can check on my repository. So I'm going to select where I want to put it, and let's say I want to grab this repository here, and it should, somewhere in here. Where did I forget? Did I do it on the? Maybe it was in here. It might be set up. Pretty sure there was a timer on here somewhere. I'm just missing it. I'm almost positive there is. I know they're just not, for whatever, I'm not seeing it here. Let me, maybe it's, oh, here it is. Duh, God, I'm so blind. So here, yeah, it says off here. I'm an idiot. So yeah, you hit this the calendar icon, which couldn't be more obvious, and then yeah, you would auto sync it, monthly, weekly, whatever, and then you're on the auto sync. Sorry about that. It's 2 hours of me talking, no oxygen. That looks like we hit it, guys. That's amazing. So I know there's only a few of you left, but I really appreciate the time today. I'm going to try to do these every week. Obviously I record these, so feel free to share it. If you have any other questions, or obviously it's awesome to have this open conversation. I love to be able to move back and forth, talk about the functionality. We only have a couple minutes left. I just want to conclude on, there's a tremendous amount of pressure that we're all feeling within CSI to advance AI, and we're all faced with the same challenges, right? We have people in our companies that like AI, that love AI, that maybe know a little bit about AI, maybe know a lot of AI, and then you also have the people that aren't really big on it, right? And I do these sessions not only because I'm trying to be inclusive and I'm trying to say, like, listen, this is not just a developer thing. If we really want to advance AI across CSI, and part of the vision that I spoke with Mark Leonard about when we started this business 3 years ago was, we see the road ahead is complicated. There's going to be a lot of different ways that we're going to have to put energy behind becoming an AI native business, and our business units have to do the same. And to do so, you have to kind of go in. You kind of have to cross the chasm with a little bit of bravado, right? You got to jump into it. And we wanted to build a platform that was a safe place to do that. I mean, you can build agents, as I showed you just now, even if it's just for the smallest task, for your individual use, or maybe for your team. Just start building agents. Don't overthink it, right? Create one that builds sales proposals. Create one that, and understand, put a disclosure. Hey guys, I'm just working on this thing. I put some training in here. If you have any thoughts, if you have any feedback, please give it to me. I can make it better. And then just start down the path of building out this agentic workforce. It should be that everybody's goal is to learn how to build an agent. And then, of course, the real thing I think that happens every time is that you start building more and more agents on top of that. And it becomes almost not necessarily addictive, but it becomes part of your process. You start thinking about your work and you're going, hey, I wonder if an agent could do this. Somebody just sent me this spreadsheet and they told me to compile this spreadsheet and build out a short report. And I've been doing this manually for years. And yeah, maybe it only takes me 10 minutes. But man, it'd be really easier if I could just build an agent, throw the spreadsheet in, see what happens, and then hand it off to somebody else to do, or make it autonomous, right? It doesn't have to be an agent that solves every single problem that we have, or that is going to build the next best thing for us. It can be a series, hundreds of agents that do small little things that really advance our businesses. So, I know that there's a lot of pressure to put things on get live and go live with this and that, but some of the most the agents that we've built for CSI, especially at the corporate level, that have gotten the highest adoption, that have been used by hundreds of people, that have shown that show ROI of 15, 20, 30 grand a month of time saved, quite honestly, started as just kind of pet project stuff. It wasn't like this grandiose vision. It's like, oh man, it'd be really cool if we created an agent that was trained on all of our fiscal policies and all of our financial documents, and boy, if we could just spend some time and get it up to speed and understand revenue recognition and contract evaluations and do contract revenue evaluate, all that stuff that we kind of constantly do. And lo and behold, that's what it does, right? Another point I want to make before we end this call is, we do have agents that we've built that are shareable, you know. So, you know, if you're looking for things like an NDA redline agent, a revenue recognition agent, a financial analyst agent at the portfolio level or at the BU level, I know most of your BUs are very unique, but if you're looking for some generic agents, you know, that we can spin up and send over and add to your org, or if you have ideas, you know, that you want to throw at us, you know, we have an agent factory here that we're happy to do so, and share what we find out there. And so this is something that I'm also encouraging, right? I'm not obviously not going to share customers' agents because those are proprietary and those are for customers only. But here inside of raia, sometimes we'll build an agent that has absolutely nothing to do with CSI. It'll be like, oh, we built this agent that generates, Jira tickets, right? And I get it. That's an easy thing for you guys to build too. But if it's just yet another way that we can push you to start doing things, we're happy to, hey, spin up a Jira ticket creator or a, whatever creator. And again, it's the more agents that you have access to, the more likelihood that people within your company and your organization will log in and use them. And the more likely that they'll get better and better and better. And at some point they can become autonomous and they'll just work. And you don't need a human to prompt it anymore. And we'll all achieve kind of in a collective manner. And this is part of obviously the power of raia is, even though it isolates and allows you as an organization to increase and be better and accelerate your deployment of an agentic workforce, at some layer, we all share a very similar business, and we can share these best practices and share, in some cases, agents that we develop and maybe even applications we build with each other. And that's where we really start to accelerate as CSI as a whole, and also where we all benefit as individuals. And that's again the brilliance of being a decentralized company, is that we all have this autonomy. But at any point in time, if somebody discovers gold in an agent, which could be a very simple way, it's easy to share it inside of raia. You can easily take any agent you have and share it with anybody in the world across CSI or beyond. And for example, if anybody here wants to have access to our finance agent that we use across all the finance world, and you haven't for whatever reason seen it, or if you're a financial person inside of a portfolio, you should have access to Patroli, right? And we can invite you to it, and things like that. Very valuable. Contract reviews, legal agents, anything like that. Let's get the dialogue going, and we will make sure that we can help you get more value. And again, this is where everything is, where we believe we're skating where the puck is going. A lot of you are in different steps of your journey. Many of you are in the tool stage. Many of you are basically in the DIY. Should we build some things ourselves? And I think raia provides you best of both worlds. You can still build stuff on your own. You can still build stuff on raia and have full control over it. Or you can, if you need something done quickly, you can build it all on raia and let it rip. The good news is it's not going anywhere. It's going to be inside of CSI forever. And we only benefit. And of course, our job on our side is to continue to make it better for you. So feedback is huge. That's why I do these AMAs. I like to hear what customers are saying. I like to hear what people need. And if there's functionality we can add to the platform, that's our job, is to, all boats rise with every piece of every new feature, every new functionality we add. Now, I went over 5 minutes. I appreciate the extra time. Thanks so much. If you have any questions, feel free to email support at, they'll get on the bottom of it. If there's anything else that you would like to see or need, certainly email me requests, but I'll be doing more and more of these. Please invite other people within your business unit, your portfolio. I'll share this video as well. Hey, listen, we're only going to be able to get this done the more we are communicating how easy it is to get it done. I think the theory that this is a complicated thing that's going to pull resources away, it's going to take your developers off what they need to be focused on, and that your team that is never going to necessarily embrace it, I think those are becoming less and less valid excuses or valid reasons. What I've shown you today is, how easy it is to drag and drop, click around our product and build a very powerful agent that can be deployed, very easily. And I'm hoping that resonated. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful day. And just a quick reminder, if anybody here is from Toronto or Montreal, we'll be there later this month. Please go to our website, click on events. And if you want to attend a live session, we'll be there. If anybody on this call, which I highly doubt is late at night, is in Europe, we'll also be in Europe in June. That'll also be on our website and events, anything like that. You go to our website. We visit CSI portfolios and companies all the time. If it's something that you're interested in doing for your portfolio or your BU, and you're somewhere in the United States or whatever in the world, we're happy to consider adding your city to our tour. Think of us as a cover band for your favorite rock band. so we'll go anywhere for free beer and AI. Enjoy your day. Thanks so much.